Suppose you have the following data for which type of car students at a college drive. How can we analyze this data? Now, if you evaluate this data, it's very difficult to understand and look at. So what do? We need to summarize this. First, we need to decide the categories for each type of car, and then we'll take it further from there. In this case, it is relatively easy. Just use the car type like Toyota, Honda, Chevy, etc. However, if you look at the data, there are several cars that only have one car in the list. Like we have Kia, we have Mercedes, we have Hyundai, etc. What do we do about these cars? In this scenario, we just count how many of each type of cars are there and just say that we have another category for these cars, that's others. That's it. That's all you need to do. And then we need to come up with a table. I've already done the work for you. The table would look something like this. Let's have a look at this. So these are the categories that we have. Ford, and the frequency, the number of cars that Ford has is 5. Then Chevy 12, Honda 6, Toyota 12, Nissan 10, others. This is the category that I was talking about. And lastly, we have the total. Now, once you have this table in which you have your category and the frequency, it gets very easy to draw the bar graph. I have also drawn the bar graph for you. It will look something like this. This is the bar graph of this example. Now, what do you see? Bar graphs consist of frequencies on one axis and the category on the other axis. Please be careful, the axis can be shifted as well. We can have the frequencies on the x-axis and the category on the y-axis. It's completely fine. And this is the heading. Now, what are some key features of this bar graph? Please remember that there should be equal spacing on each axis. This is very important. Then bars are of the same width. You see, this is equal, this is same, this is same. All bars will have equal widths. Thirdly, there should be labels on each axis and a title for the graph. On the y-axis, we have the frequency. On the x-axis, we have the category, and we have this title as well. Then there should be a scaling on the frequency axis, and the categories should be listed on the category axis, like we have already done. On the x-axis, we have Ford, Chevy, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, others. And on the frequency axis, we have these numbers. Lastly, the bars should not touch. So these are some key features of a bar graph you should remember. Now let's draw a pie chart of the same data. We have the category, we have the frequency, but to draw a pie chart, we need another category, that is the angle. Why do we need an angle? Because a pie chart is basically a circle, and a circle has 360 degrees. So we need to understand how much of a sector should we allot to these categories. So the higher the frequency, the bigger the frequency, the bigger the sector will be. That is something you need to understand. And how can we calculate the angle? We divide the frequency by the total amount. This is called relative frequency. Please remember this. Frequency divided by total frequency is basically relative frequency. And then we multiply this by 360 to get the sector, to get the angle. So what do we get? We will get 36 degrees. Similarly, if you do 12 divided by 50 into 360, you will get this number, that is 86.4. Once you have all the angles, you can easily come up with a pie chart. I've drawn the pie chart for you. It will look something like this. So you see, the bigger the frequency, the bigger the sector will be. The bigger the frequency, the bigger the sector. We can see from the graph that Toyota and Chevy are more popular, while the cars in the other category are liked the least. Of the cars you can determine from the graph, Ford, you see, is liked less than others. So these are some things that you can easily identify from a pie chart. Lastly, pie charts are useful for comparing sizes of categories. Bar charts also show similar information. It really doesn't matter which one you use. It is really a personal preference and also what information you are trying to address. However, pie charts are best when you only have few categories and the data can be expressed as a percentage or as degrees. Let's evaluate this question. By the end of 2011, Facebook had over 146 million users in the United States. That's huge. Table shows 3 age groups, the number of users in each age group and the percentage of users in each age group. construct a bar graph using this data. Obviously, you won't get a question in which you will have to construct a bar graph on the SAT exam, but I've included this question intentionally because if you can draw a bar graph yourself, you can answer any kind of question regarding bar graphs or pie charts. So the first thing is to evaluate the data and then come up with the category. So you see the age groups, this is basically our category, this is our x-axis. And the proportion percentage of Facebook users, this will be on the y-axis. We can use this or this, percentage is always preferred. Please remember this. The bar graph will look something like this. I've already drawn the bar graph for you. You see on the x-axis, we have the ages. On the y-axis, we have the percentage, frequency, or any other number that we have over here. You see the bars have same width. Every bar is equal. They're equally spaced and they do not touch each other. So these are some of the common things that you need to remember. Another question, Joanna's expenses from January till March. Okay, she spends 20% on food, 40% on movies, 25% on music, and 15% on other items. And in total, she is spending $400. Okay, the question is, how much more money did Joanna spend on movies than on music? So she basically spends 40% on movies. That is, on movies we have 40% of the total amount, 40% of the total amount, that is this. Just do the math and you'll see 40 into 4 is 160. So she basically spends $160 on movies. Now let's do the same scenario with music. On music, she is spending 25%. Which is basically 25 over 100 into 400. The zeros cancel out. 25 into 4 is $100. So she is spending $100 over here on music. Subtract these two amounts and we will have our answer. So she is basically spending 160 minus 100, 60 more dollars on movies than on music. This is our answer that you will put in the grid.